It's Pyram King with another update to Legends of Barovia. Today we're going to be covering the Wolf Den, the free PDF guide, the Foundry Adventure module, and some suggestions and tips in running this location and session. And before we get started, a huge shout out to all of my supporters. It's your support that allows me to make these free video guides, the free PDF guides for the community, and as a special thank you for your support, you receive some bonus content, including artwork, sound files, tokens, maps, player handouts, and I take all of that content, I wrap it up, put it into a Foundry Adventure module, which we will be looking at as a special thank you to you. If you're interested in supporting me on this epic journey, you can by clicking on the membership link in the description down below. Now let's jump into this. We're gonna first go over that free PDF guide. If you wanna pause the video, go ahead and download it. There's a link in the description and follow along, you may. Now the first thing I always do in the PDF guides is I include a brief little history to the location. I find it helps the Dungeon Master understand the importance of this location, how it fits into the storyline, the major plot, the reason for the characters being there, and also the motivation of the NPCs in this location. Now, to summarize what you'll find here is there were the warg here in the valley long before there were humans. And warg are kind of giant wolf beasts. And when the humans arrived, the humans started hunting the warg, and vice versa. The warg became predators of the humans, and the Fae intervened. The Fae said to the warg, go live in the mountains, leave the humans alone, and for the humans not to hunt the warg. Now, the humans and the warg lived in peace for centuries. Then one day, a young boy, was cursed with lycanthropy in the village of Kresk, and he was an outcast. They threw him out of the village of Kresk. And the warg found this young man with the curse of lycanthropy. And the warg raised him, showed him how to hunt, how to live in nature. He became one of them. But most importantly, the warg taught the young man with lycanthropy the taming ritual, how to control the beast within, how to transform into a werewolf on command and control himself. Now, the werewolf and the warg lived very happily for a long time in the mountains, away from the humans. And then the Great War took place, and that's when Strahd arrived to the valley. And Strahd learned of the werewolves, and he asked the werewolves for aid to join his forces. And in return, the werewolves could wreak havoc and take vengeance upon the humans that cast them out as undesirables. Well, of course, the werewolf did this, and this created a giant rift between the warg, who said live and let live in the mountains, don't get involved with humans, and the werewolf siding with Strahd. And all of that can be found here, this background and this history of where the werewolves came from. Now, additionally, you're going to find a brief werewolf legend here. This is a little story that you can share as an NPC, maybe in a tavern or over fire somewhere in Kresk or Vallaki. And this provides not only a myth, but a little bit of truth to what actually happened. It's a great way of introducing this story and this lore to the player characters. Additionally, on this page, you're going to find character knowledge. These are just highlighted locations where the players may have run into werewolves or warg, and it's a little bullet point for you as the DM to remind yourself what the characters may or may not know at this point. Now, the next section talks about the clan, the werewolf clan, and it's been fractured. There are two packs within the clan. Carol is the current leader of the clan. This covers the people that are allied with Carol, including his mate, as well as Lars and a few others. And you'll notice that their stat blocks have been slightly adjusted in there to represent the unique ability of that particular werewolf. There's a brief paragraph that talks a little bit about their role within the pack and within the clan to help you as a dungeon master roleplay these different characters. There's also a little bit of history here of why the pack has been fractured and how Carol came into power and got rid of the previous leader, which was Emil. Now, Emil's pack, you'll find that Emil, there's not even a picture of Emil here. He is missing. In fact, he is now being held as a captive up in the gates of Salenka. And you'll learn about that more in the Salenka Gates guide. But the other ones here are his mate, a couple of other ones, as well as Ilya Kreskov, the Burgermeister of Kresk's son, who was kidnapped by the werewolves, who was brought here and has now been cursed with lycanthropy and is about to go through that taming ritual. So the players may have been motivated in Kresk to go and find their son, who's been missing, who was captured by the werewolves. So Ilya is now here captured. It's a great, could be a great rescue operation. The other one here is Skinnis, which was Emil's father, and also we have Grimrock, the warg chieftain here. We're going to talk a little bit about him because the players will have or possibly have interaction with Grimrock. Next up, we have the lycanthropy in Barovia. Now, lycanthropy in Barovia is a little bit different. There is inherited lycanthropy. That means you've inherited, your parents have it. It's genetic in there. If you have it, you can't get rid of it. It's not a curse. The other one is you've been bitten by a werewolf and you've been cursed with lycanthropy, and that is removable. So there's some information here as well as some NPCs that have knowledge about the differences between them. So it gives you some idea of which NPCs could share information possibly with the characters. Now, if you're running the lycanthropy player hook from the campaign guide, these couple of pages will be pretty important to you because the character is going to be learning how to control their lycanthropy at this point. Now, you can remove the curse. There are 4 ways to remove the curse. 2 of them are spells, Remove Curse and Greater Restoration. However, it's not as easy as just casting a spell. Remove Curse requires a very daunting DC 30 check in order for that curse to get removed. So it's very, very hard to remove the curse of lycanthropy in Barovia using Remove Curse. In addition, using the restoration spell is not just a wave of casting a spell. You need to go out there and understand lycanthropy itself before you can even attempt to use Greater Restoration to get rid of the curse. And there's only a couple of NPCs that know actually how to do this. The Abbot, Lila, the Forest Fae, how to use that particular spell to get rid of lycanthropy. So just because you know the spell doesn't mean it automatically works. Now, there are 2 other ways to get rid of lycanthropy. One is called the Blood of the Werewolf. Finding the werewolf that bit you and cursed you, killing them, taking their heart, boiling their heart in blood, drinking the concoction under a full moon. You can get pretty violently ill, but you will be cured of the curse. And the 4th way is the belladonna root treatment. This is a significantly dangerous treatment for the players to take. It could possibly lead to death. Both Sonya in Kresk and her sister Anya in Vallaki know about this treatment and can make the belladonna root treatment for the players should they become cursed. So this gives you the information on how to remove this curse. The next section covers the taming ritual, which I briefly talked about. So if you have lycanthropy in Barovia on a full moon, 3 or 4 nights of the full moon, you lose control. You turn into a werewolf. The dungeon master takes control of your player character. There's nothing you can do, and you wake up the next morning with no memory of it. The only way to avoid that is to be locked up into a cage or to be shackled with silver manacles during that night when you automatically transform to avoid the dungeon master taking you over and getting a long rest. So how does the player character or anyone with lycanthropy end up controlling it? Well, they go through a ritual called the taming ritual, and they're sacrificial tiers. So you need to sacrifice something. You need to go out and kill something, sacrifice it, drink the blood of that particular creature, and then you go through this ritual. And if you succeed in the Constitution saving throw, well, you can control your lycanthropy. And that means on any single night, you can turn yourself into a werewolf. And on the nights of a full moon, when you automatically become a werewolf, you have full control of your faculties. The problem here is the sacrificial tiers. If you just sacrifice a rabbit or a field mouse, well, the DC is 20, and if you fail, you're going to take 1d12 necrotic damage. But if you're willing to sacrifice a human, go out there and hunt a human, or some formidable beast, and risk your life in doing so, well, your DC is going to be either 10 or 14 or 10. It's going to be considerably lower. It's going to be easier to pass that ritual and control yourself. But here's the dilemma the player character is going to have. This is a serious moral dilemma, right? Do you sacrifice a human being so that you can easily pass the taming ritual, or do you sacrifice a rabbit because you're not willing to sacrifice a human being? Or do you go after a formidable beast and risk your life because you, not your party, not anybody else, you have to kill that beast, right? You have to show Mother Night that you're willing to kill this beast, drink its blood, eat it, drink its concoction, go through this ritual for you to be able to control the lycanthropy. We also have a picture of the statue of Mother Night here. This is the god, supposedly one of the first werewolves and god in which the werewolf clan worships. And it's in front of Mother Night in their ritual chamber, which you go through the ritual taming. Now, the rest of this has the information of the different locations. We're going to be going through this in Foundry, the Snow Forest encounter, as well as the Wolf Den. There's everything you need in this PDF guide to run the expanded location that we've added for Legends of Barovia. And it also includes the stat blocks at the end. Now let's go ahead and jump into the Foundry Adventure module and talk about some of the things that we've added to it. First off, you're going to pretty much start off on this road through the forest to get to the mountains. And this is actually a journey. So you may or may not want to run some random encounters or planned encounters along this forest road. And as you're traveling down this forest road, you're going to notice a path. And this path leads off in a different direction. The path is not well trodden. Now, the players may already know, if they've met with Darovich, the wolf hunter in Kresk, that this particular path leads to a friend of his who's another wolf hunter that lives in seclusion named Skinnis. Now, Darovich doesn't know that Skinnis is a werewolf. He just is friends with Skinnis, thinking he's an old werewolf hunter or wolf hunter living out in the snow. And that brings the players to, if they take that path, here to Darovich's cabin. We've got a picture of Darovich here. There he is. I'm sorry, not Darovich, Skinnis. Now, what's interesting in the Skinnis encounter here is when the players meet with Skinnis here, the players are going to have to earn Skinnis's trust. And there's two ways in which to do that. Either the players have met with Scran Ragnar, who's the leather, owns a leather shop, Scran's Leather and Hide, him and his wife, whose daughter is Zalika, who is the mate of Emil's, and she has become a werewolf who they know, and there's a whole quest line. So if you have that quest line, they'll already know about Skinnis and the daughter, and that there's a werewolf den somewhere. So if you approach Skinnis and say, "Hey, we're friends with Scran and Zalika's parents from Vallaki. We're here to help," or if the players come and say, "Hey, we were sent here. Darovich told us that you might know something of the werewolf den," etc., etc. So you're going to have to earn Skinnis's trust at this point here. Now, once you do, he is going to tell you what's going on, that Emil and his son and his mate, he has vanished. Emil has vanished, and he suspects that Carol is the current leader, is suspected of foul play. He's going to tell him that Carol arrived back with some dire wolves. He thinks Carol is in league with Strahd, and he says if you can get rid of Carol, restore the pack to its old ways, to align themselves back with the warg, to be respectful of the Fae and respectful of nature, and get rid of what they're doing, this horrible stuff that the pack's doing, he will perform the taming ritual for any character that has lycanthropy. He'll also become a friend and an ally of the players. Now, he's going to suggest two things. Number one, he's going to suggest seek out Grimrock, who is the chieftain of the warg. They might be able to help you if you can convince him. You need to be able to convince him. The second thing is he's going to give you the two secret entrances into the wolf den. There is a secret entrance at the top of the mountain. It's a back entrance into the wolf den. And there's also a fissure in the mountain that drops down into an underground spring. So there's two secret entrances into the wolf den. So he's going to give you that information. Now, once you leave Skinnis' cabin, or if you follow the main road towards the wolf den, you're going to run into this forest meadow here. And when you run into this forest meadow, you're going to see this is what's going to happen. You've either left Skinnis' cabin or you've traveled on that main path, and you're going to, amid the freezing gusts of wind and distant cry, you hear a distant cry for help. And you'll see this guy, this human there, and he's surrounded by some warg, right? So they're going to see this human here. Here he is, this human. They got these wargs ready to attack him. Now, at this point, the players are going to have to decide what they're going to do. Do they want to help the human, or they want to help the warg, right? Now, the players may have already run into the warg, the injured warg on the way to the abbey, and they might know that saying that the warg have, which is Drog Jan Ska, which is a very, it signifies shared bond through victorious bloodshed. If they say that, the warg will kind of stand out. It's like, how do you know how to speak warg? You know, that's this common saying that we have, and usually only an ally would say that. So there might be a way to calm down the situation. But the human is actually Lars, who is on a scouting mission for the warg den on behalf of Carol, because Carol wants to wipe the warg out. So if you come there, you're going to have to decide who to aid, because the players are not going to know that Lars is a werewolf. He is not in werewolf form at this point. He is a human looking like he needs help, being surrounded by these warg. Now, if you run this combat encounter, you can run it here in Theater of the Mind, but we also have a snow forest map here. And I'll go ahead and activate that here. So we have a snow forest map here, and we have, there we got Lars there. We've got the werewolves, the warg here. We got some wargs. By the way, we've got layered maps here, so the wargs can go underneath the trees here, which is pretty cool. I don't know if you can check that out. So there's a warg here underneath this tree. Players will be barely able to see him as he sneaks underneath the trees there, which is kind of cool. So we've got this really kind of cool layer map. You can actually go underneath this log too. Check this out. There, you can go underneath this log. It's pretty cool. So you've got Lars here. The players are going to arrive at the bottom. They're going to see this guy surrounded by werewolves, and they got to decide who they're going to fight against. They're going to fight against the warg, or they're going to let the warg take out this human. Again, the only way that the players are going to know that Lars is a werewolf is if one of the players has lycanthropy. Will be able to tell. They have like a loop and tracker. They're going to know, they're going to sniff and go, that guy is a werewolf or has lycanthropy. He might be a were-raven, he might be a werewolf, but he has lycanthropy. So they're going to be able to smell him out. Now, if you go into a combat encounter, at the end of each round, you're going to roll a 1d6. On 1 through 4, nothing happens. But on a 5, Lars will emit a howl. 1d2 werewolves will show up to aid. On a 6, the wargs will howl, and 1d4 Barovian wargs will show up. Now, we got the warg stat blocks in here. They're fairly vicious. 45 hit points. They get two attacks, a claw attack. They also have a bite attack. But if they go into combat, whether you side with Lars or whether you side with the warg, Lars will turn into a werewolf. Now, Lars is fairly an interesting character because one of his advantages, he's got a little bit better dexterity, but he has 40 feet of movement. He is the fastest werewolf of the clan. He is the werewolf hunter. So he has 40 feet of movement. Don't forget that, because that gives him a slight movement advantage. You want to decide how you want to run this. If I would probably run this, if the players side with Lars, I would just run it as a normal encounter. He changes into a werewolf alongside the party, fights the warg, you run the encounter. If the party joins with the warg or does nothing, I might think that Lars will try to escape. He's outnumbered at this point. The party showed up. He might try to escape at this point. So I would kind of leave it up to you on how you want to run this. Now, if you, at the end of this encounter, if you side with the warg at the end of the counter, you're going to meet Grimrock, and here he is. There's Grimrock here, and he is the leader of the warg, and he has a pretty amazing stat block. He's got 120, 17 armor class. He does a claw attack, multi-attack. He's a pretty formidable warg, is Grimrock. And it's gonna be very hard to convince Grimrock. Now, if you tell him about that you ran into the warg at the Abbey and that the werewolves were planning an attack, what Grimrock will do is he will send a warg out into the woods to hinder the werewolves or attack the werewolves so they don't attack Kresk. So you could possibly save Kresk from that attack if you remember in the Kresk guide by informing Grimrock that that's going to happen. Now, why would Grimrock want to do this? Well, Grimrock is he is an ally of the Fae. He won't go against the rules of the Warg is to not interfere with humans. But he's also concerned because if the werewolves attack Kresk, which you learn about in the Kresk guide, or in the on the way to the Abbey, if the werewolves attack Kresk, the humans don't differentiate between werewolves and warg. They will start attacking the warg too. The warg will automatically become an enemy of the humans if the werewolves attack Kresk. So he has self-interest in order to protect the warg as well by stopping the werewolves. Now, if Lars escapes or you've defeated Lars for whatever reason, and you tell them that, hey, we're here to get to, maybe you're there to rescue the Burgermeister's son, which is an honorable thing to do. Maybe you're there to reinstate Emil or get rid of Carol. Grimrock would like to see the werewolves go back to their old way and stop kidnapping children, doing horrible things, and allying with Strahd. And he will, if you convince him, he will give you or send you a warg with your party to infiltrate, to take over Carol, to overthrow Carol and restore the clan. And if that does happen, then what you're going to do is you're going to give the player characters a warg token. You can just give the player characters a warg token here and just select one of them tokens and just assign it to the players. And the players can can give it the ownership to all of them. The players can control a warg. So you've got a new ally in your party, and once that you've defeated Carol or done whatever you need to do, then the warg returns back to the warg den, the den of the warg. So it's a possibility in this force encounter to win over Grimrock and get a warg ally for them to accompany you into the werewolf den. Now, the warg don't know about the secret entrances to the den, only Skinnis does. So if you didn't get any information from Skinnis, you might not be able to, you won't know unless you search yourself about those two secret entrances. That leads us to the mountainside. When you approach where the wolf den is here, we've got a Theater of the Mind map here of the wolf den and of the mountainside. Again, you can play this in Theater of the Mind, and you'll notice that you'll see some smoke kind of high up. There might be a fire ring or something up there. If the players want to scale the cliffs there, they're 20 to 40 feet in there. There's some rules on here if you're going to be using rope or pitons to lower that DC to climb up here. Again, you can run this in Theater of the Mind if you want to. But we also have a gorgeous map by DM Andy of the cliffside here. So at the bottom here, you have the entrance of the, and I'll just grab one of these. I'll just create a player character really quick so you can see, because I want to show you a couple of things here, give you some vision. When the players arrive, you're going to put the player characters down here at the bottom. This is the entrance here to the wolf den. If the players want to sneak in, either into the fissure or up in through the secret entrance up at the top where the ring of stones are, they can, but they're going to have to climb these cliffs. Now, the characters can, walk under here. This is, by the way, they can see underneath here. But there's two notes on here. These are 20-foot cliffs. And so the players are going to have to try to climb up these cliffs. If they do, you just drag them up to the top. They'll be able to see down now, but they won't be able to see up to the next cliff. Now, they might have to climb each one of these cliffs. That's up to you if you want to run skill checks to see if they can climb the cliff. But there is a way. If they get way over here on the edge, they can come around and avoid having to climb the cliff. And that's when you get to the fissure here. Now, the fissure here drops down into the underground spring in the wolf den. And I put two teleporting tokens, these teleporting tiles. These are Monk's active tiles here. And there's this information about the fissure right here. Now, the reason I put two of them in here, and I thought this was kind of interesting, the first fissure, the characters look down, they can't see down at the bottom. It's completely dark down there. If the players rappel down on this side, in this one here, and I'll just show you, if they go down on this one, the players are going to land on the land, not in the water here, okay? I'll just delete this one. There's another one I dropped in there. However, if the players, and I'll put another player token over here, drop in this one over here, they're going to land in the water down below. And you're going to see they're going to land in the water. And the reason I did this is I thought it'd be kind of fun if you wanted to, is if they land in the water, you might want to roll a check because it'd be kind of a splash. And does any werewolves hear them enter in by splashing into the water? So I'll leave that up to you how you want to run that there. If they go in the northern part of the fissure, they're going to land in the water. In the southern part of the fissure, they're going to land on land. And if they land in the water, you might want to run have them roll a stealth check or something like that, or a dexterity save. Figure out what you want to run, depending on if the character hits the water or not. And if they fail that stealth or dexterity save, that splash is heard in the cavern, and maybe a werewolf comes to investigate. When we get to the top of the mountain up here, depending on the time of day, you might want to have 3 different scenarios here. You could have a werewolf out here on guard, looking out here on guard. You could have possibly, and if we look up here, you can see I've got a section in here, the Ring of Stone. It's possible that Zalika is out here, searching, looking out over the horizon, hoping that her mate Emil comes. So if you wanted to have Zalika here, you could have her here, and the players could meet her right away here. Or in another scenario, neither of them are here. It's just empty. Now, inside against the cliff, there's an entrance into the tunnel in the back, and if the characters go through into this token, touch this arrow, this is a teleportation, and this brings them into the back of the wolf cave here. So this is the back to the wolf cave. If they go out this way, they'll come up at the top up here. So that's a teleportation in and out of the wolf cave. Now that's up to you on how you want to run the mountainside here, if they decide to even try to get up to the fissure or up to the Ring of Stones. Otherwise, they're going to go through the main entrance. Now, what's very interesting about the wolf den, and one of the things I like about the wolf den, is there's multiple ways the players can go into this wolf den. You have the main entrance. If they go in the main entrance, whether they have that warg ally or not, they're going to be seen. Right? There's no real way to get through this main entrance, and you're going to be going into a possible, full attack mode here. I mean, you could be going into big combat encounters depending on how they engage. There's another way to get into the wolf den. Remember during the Snow Force encounter, if they help Lars, right? Help Lars escape or help Lars defeat the warg, obviously the players will become enemies with the warg, but Lars will welcome back to the wolf den. And Lars will take him right through the front entrance. Hey, these guys saved my life. Actually, they killed some of the wargs, or they helped me escape. And all of a sudden, you're going to be automatically, whether you like it or not, friends with the wolf den, right? And you'll be enemies with the wargs. So that's another way. The third way they could do this is try to infiltrate, do kind of a stealth infiltration, either through the fissure or in through the back way. Right, and try to meet up with Zalika or somebody else in the wolf den to ally with them. So it's going to be very interesting on how the characters approach this. Either a full frontal assault, either try to win over Lars to get in, try to make a secret entrance in through the fissure or in through the tunnel. So I really like the wolf den encounter because it really gives the players some options on how they want to get in here. And it can be this can be a TPK location. Now, we're going to jump into the wolf den itself. We got a beautiful map by Diamandi, and we're going to talk about some of these locations here. So as the players come in, and what we have here what I would do is I put the players out in front like this before they go in. And we've got this invisible wall. They can see the light flickering at this point. And I'll just I'll reset the fog of war for you. They'll see the light flickering at the outside of the cave. They can see some light. And if they go through, they're going to be on the inside of the cave at this point. Now, what they can't see is there's a cliff up ahead, and hidden up in the shadows in the cliff is 2 werewolves. You've got Devanka here and another werewolf on guard. And they'll see anybody walking through here. The characters won't see it. And it's going to be really hard to run stealth. This is a lighted area. So it's going to be really hard to stealth in through the front entrance. I would make it almost impossible to run stealth. And if they want to try to stealth through the front entrance, I'd set that DC really, really high, because these two werewolves up here, their whole job is to be watching the mouth of this cave. Now, if the players go to the right, this is when they get into the underground spring over here. And again, you can see this lighted area that Diamandi put in here. This area is that fissure up above where the players would come down. They're either going to land in the water, or they're going to land over here. And if they get into here through the fissure, the werewolves up here won't notice. If they hear a splash, one of these werewolves over here might come down to investigate. Hey, what was that splash? But otherwise, they'll be able to get down here, and they'll head up here. If they head up here, this is a nice location for them to take maybe a little reprieve when they get in, because this is a storage area. Now the werewolves, which the players will have learned while they were in Kresk, the werewolves have been raiding the shipments from Vallaki to Kresk. In fact, they've been raiding the shipments of wine coming up from the Wizards of Wine as well. So they're going to find a bunch of stuff here that the werewolves have taken from raiding these shipments. So you can find short swords, spears, heavy crossbows, leather armor, rope, sacks of flour and grain, barrel of apples, even a barrel of purple grape mash wine from the Wizards of Wine. Because whatever, when they attack they're attacking these things not just to attack the humans. They're doing it for three reasons. Number one, to attack humans, probably try to kidnap children. You've already learned, if you've met with Darvich, that his wife and daughter were kidnapped this way and murdered and killed by the werewolves. They're also trying to disrupt the trade, right? Trying to isolate Kresk. If they attack the shipments to Kresk, and Kresk is relying on Vallaki for shipments, they begin to isolate Kresk. It's a form of siege, technically. And the third thing is they're trying to get equipment. They're going to need stuff, right? So they're getting all this equipment here. So this is the storage area of all the stuff that they've been from their raids on the shipments here. Now the player characters here there's an area over here. This is invisible. It's for you, the DM. You can say, hey, there's a 5-foot kind of cliff up here. If the players climb up the cliff, they're going to be in the area known as the Deep Caves. Now this area, a player could stealth through here without getting noticed and make it down into the ritual chamber. If they make it down into the ritual chamber, they're going to run into Zalika here. There's two ways to get to her, because she'll be in the ritual chamber. If you decide not to put her outside on the Ring of Stones, by the way, I got a Ring of Stones Theater of the Mind map. If you decide not to put her out here, which you probably won't, I wouldn't, but you could, you can run her in the ritual chamber. Here she is in the ritual chamber, and she's praying to the Mother Night. She's just praying for her mate, Emil, to get back. Now, there's two ways to get to her without getting noticed, and both ways require stealth. The first way is you're going to be coming down through the tunnels this way, right? Through the tunnel. You come down through the tunnel this way, and you're going to sneak in here, and you're going to meet up with her. Or you're going to come through the fissure, and the player's going to meet up with her. Now, she is the only werewolf in the den that's not immediately going to raise alarm and begin to attack. She's the only one that's going to be immediately friendly. If the players tell her right away, hey, we saw Skinnis. Skinnis is her father-in-law. If she saw Scran or Scran Ragnar and his wife, that's her parents. So you can win her over very quickly. And all she wants is Emil to be returned. And she'd like to see Carol taken out. So you're going to win her over as ally if you get to her first, right? So those are the two ways that you can get to her. Now, if the players come up the other way here, through here, and they come in here like this, they're going to immediately be facing off against these werewolves. The werewolves are going to just, sound the alarm. You're going to be in trouble here. And if you try to go into a combat encounter, I would make this combat encounter a situation where the players are going to only do one of three things. They're going to be forced to surrender, they're going to retreat, or they're going to die. Now, I don't know how your players play, but hopefully players realize they're going to be outnumbered, because as soon as they see player characters entering through here, they're going to be calling upon more werewolves. And I would have anywhere from 2 to 4 more werewolves show up here. So you got some female and male werewolves. They're going to rush in here. And the players are going to be outnumbered. What you want to do is outnumber the werewolves. The werewolves do not want to kill the players. They're only going to kill the players if the players don't stand down. Now, if the players stand down, what they're going to do is they're going to bring the player characters into the werewolf chamber over here. And this is where Carol is. And he's got his 2 dire wolves next to him and another werewolf. And we've got a scene in here, right here. So the players show up. They're going to be in the cave. And they're going to be brought in front of Carol. And the players are going to have to do some fast talking really quick, right? Because Carol's here and he's like, I mean, they're killing humans, right? They don't want the humans here. And so the players are going to have to, he's distrustful of strangers, especially humans. The players are going to have to convince him. We've got a member in our party's got lycanthropy. We've came here because of the taming ritual. If he thinks the players are enemies of Strahd, he is going to try to do something. Maybe imprison them, put them in the cages in the ritual room, do something at this point. I would run this that Carol and the werewolves aren't interested in killing the players. They're interested in, finding what the players know, finding out who these players are, probably trying to take the players' weapons, imprisoning the players for Strahd, because Strahd would like to know. This would be a great way for, if you imprison the players, Strahd comes, takes the players back to Ravenloft. Perhaps you could introduce the dinner with Strahd this way, or maybe he locks them in the dungeon cells there. The other thing is if you win over Carol, Carol's going to ask the players to do him a favor. Hey, look, we've been being attacked by the Warg. The Warg are warmongers. They want to kill all us werewolves. Maybe you can help us and Lars locate that Warg den and put it into the Warg, right? So Carol is a cunning, manipulative person. He's going to figure out a way to use the players to his advantage. Now, I would run a combat counter as a last possible solution. If the players don't stand down, Carol is very confident. With the werewolf den, with all his werewolves and his dire wolves, he's going to be fully confident. The players are going to be at a disadvantage. The players are at a disadvantage because they're in Carol's wolf den and they don't know the wolf den. They don't know how to navigate through the wolf den. If the players show up with a warg, the players, here's an idea. What if the players show up with a warg and they pull that Star Wars routine where you get Chewbacca kind of tied up as a fake prisoner? Maybe they bring in a warg as a fake prisoner, and as soon as they get in there, say, well, hey, we've caught this warg here. He's trying to attack, Lars or whatever, and managed to escape him. We've managed to bring one to you. And they're going to be, Carol will be really happy, right? And then all of a sudden the war breaks loose and maybe you try to do something at that point. So there's a lot of things the players can do at this point. So that's what's going to happen. They're going to bring the players to him. And this is going to be a very difficult and awkward encounter because the players are going to have to convince them. Now, you could run persuasion and intimidation checks. Against Carol, I would make them fairly high. I would run at least DC 15 or 16 against Carol, maybe DC 18, depending on, and I always, by the way, change my DC based on how well the player characters role play. If they are actually being convincing, being creative, I'll lower the DC. If they show up with the warg tied up and say, hey, and they're trying to persuade them, make the DC easy, or don't even have a roll DC. Just say, hey, Carol believes them. If they show up and they're going to try to talk their way or try to intimidate, make the DC higher. So I like to change the DC based on how the player characters role play that scenario. Now, a couple other interesting locations that the players can get to, either coming through the fissure or coming down below without running into Carol, is this first one up here is going to be this northern cave. And this is where they're going to run into the werewolf, Wensania, I guess that's how you pronounce her name, and Ilya. Now, Ilya here is the son of the Burgermeister. And the horrible truth is Carol's been capturing these kids, and he has the kids fight it out. And the kid that survives, they turn into a werewolf because they're trying to make the pack stronger by only the strong survive, and the strongest kid gets turned into a werewolf. So he is cursed, and they're waiting for we're waiting for the full moon to begin that taming ritual. Now, Wenencia, if you read about her, she's really an ally of Emil's, but she, out of practicality and being pragmatic, she's aligned herself with Carol, and she's taking care of of Ilya as if it was her own child. So this is going to be an interesting situation and a great role-playing situation. She's not immediately going to attack the players. She's going to go, why are you here? And if you say, we're here to rescue him, she could be persuaded. Like, she doesn't want Carol to be doing this to these children, and she's protected of him. And so she is technically a neutral werewolf that can be convinced. The other interesting situation that the players are going to run into is the southern cave here. In a southern cave, you've got two situations here. You've got two werewolves here. You have Bianca, which is Carol's mate, and secretly, she is really the reason that Carol's in power. She is the most powerful werewolf in here. She's got 90 hit points, 18 strength, and she is very persuasive, and she is the strength behind the throne. But she's really kind of getting pissed off at her mate, Carol. She doesn't like the kidnapping of the children. She's also pissed off that when Carol leaves, he puts Lars in charge, and she's like, Lars, dude, I'm the one that made you. I'm the one that's made you. I am your mate. I am the one that should be leading when you're gone, not Lars. So there's some animosity in this relationship. This relationship is under strain at this point, right? And so there's a private conversation with these two women, Bianca and her close friend, Asiana. Now, Asiana is concerned about the child kidnapping and the murder, and she's afraid that the humans are going to start hunting them again, and she just wants this to end. And Bianca feels for her. She goes like, I understand. So when the players run into them and approach them, they're gonna call for aid pretty quickly and attack the players pretty quickly. The players are only going to have minutes in game time, seconds, to successfully persuade Bianca. Now, if they try to persuade her, I would start at a DC 16 persuasion. If they really prove to be convincing, maybe lower it down to 14. If they try to intimidate her, she is not intimidated. She is a strong, ruthless female werewolf. It's a DC 20 check to try to intimidate her. Now, the way I would run this particular encounter is they stop. They look at the players. And you can see in their eyes, they're in human form, you can see in their arms, they're about to transform into werewolf form and attack the players. And I would give the players a timer. I go, I'm going to give you 30 seconds or 1 minute to figure out what you're going to say, because you could see that they are ready to pounce, right? Now, again, what you want to do is telegraph that they're not attacking at this point. Telegraph that they are super high alert. They're about ready to scream out. And you're going to be role-playing what would really be seconds. So the players are either going to have to do something, retreat, attack, or say something to try to convince them. It's going to be really up to the players. Now, if the player characters had run into Zolika first in the ritual chamber, she's going to kind of give them a little bit of lay of the land. Who you can trust, who you're not going to trust. If you run into Bianca, this is what you should say. I would role-play Zolika trying to win over. Zolika wants a bloodless coup. She loves all the werewolves, even the ones. She doesn't really want Carol to die. She doesn't know that Carol really killed or had Emil captured. She doesn't like him, but Bianca's her friend. So remember that she wants a bloodless coup. All the werewolves that are on Emil's side doesn't want to kill the other werewolves. If you decide to start attacking the werewolves, if the players decide to attacking the werewolves, whether they come into the front door and the alarm is sound, all the werewolves will come to aid. The way I imagine the werewolf clan, even though the pack is fractured, they are a clan. If Bianca's attacked, Zolika will side with Bianca. She's a fellow werewolf. The players are strangers, right? The players may have told her something and persuaded her something, but at the end of the day, Bianca is her friend. Asiana is her friend. These are the people that she lives with. This is her clan. So this is a very stressful, tenuous situation that needs to be delicately balanced. And the players are coming in, swords pulled out, ready to start kicking ass. they're going to be in for a big, big fight. If they start persuading the characters, they're going to have to creatively think their way through this solution here. So those are the different locations in here. Now let's talk about the ritual chamber and the den. So we've got Mother Night statue in here. Here are the cages for the ritual chamber. If you're going to run the taming ritual in here, you can run it here inside the battle map. I'll show you that here. There's a start button, and that will be playing the change the lights, and it'll start the ritual music. Now, just for fun, to give you a little peek behind the kimono, the ritual chamber song is a recording that I made of the All Blacks, New Zealand All Blacks rugby team sing a Maori war dance at the beginning of each of their games. It's a Maori chant war dance called the haka. And I recorded that haka and I did some alterations, slowed it down, put some sound effects into it to make it the taming ritual sound. And if you push the start button here, the room lights up and changes and it plays that. You can do it in Theater of the Mind. So if you want to do it in the Theater of the Mind, you can do that here. So let me go ahead and play that for you so you guys can hear the taming ritual, which is a special tribute to the New Zealand All Blacks, the Maori war chant. Here we go. So there you have it, the ritual in there with the music and the lights. Again, you can do that in the Wolf Den if you want to as well. Well, I really hope you like this guide. Again, you can download the free PDF guide. If you want to be a member and get access to the Foundry Adventure module that you see here, you can become a member in the links below. And before I go, may all your rolls be critically successful, and a special shout out and thank you to my legendary supporters.